Hello everyone and welcome to another Design Tip Tuesday. I'm Milena Hrebacka, owner of New Breed Design, and today we're talking about boundaries. Business boundaries for business owners, whether you are just starting off and eager to please and you want to take in every client and make them all happy so they'll stay with you, or if you're 10 years plus in business and you're just starting to set boundaries for the first time, or you need a little friendly reminder of what you should be reinforcing for your own mental health and well-being. So this post was brought on by a quote that caught fire recently when I shared it, and it goes as follows. I'm going to read it verbatim. People who get upset when you set boundaries are often the ones who benefited from you having none. Wow, that one shook me to my core because I felt so much truth in that simple phrase. So I'll share with you the three biggest boundaries that I try to adhere every day in my business. And granted, our businesses are likely very different. I run a graphic design studio, but I think that all of these boundaries apply no matter what you do and who you serve. My business boundary number one is setting boundaries for communication or access to you. The simplest way to do this is set business hours and stick to them. For me, I land at my computer around 8 a.m. in the morning, and that is the first time I open up my email inbox. I certainly do not open up my phone in bed, and I don't do it as I'm getting dressed or doing my makeup or hair or eating breakfast. I don't want that entering my mind space until I'm actually in working mode. And then I can thoughtfully process and respond to my clients and be the professional that I want to be, and not a second before 8 a.m. So as soon as I sit down, that's when my clients know when I'll respond to emails. However, I sign off at 4, and that means that not a second after 4 do I look at my emails. This can be very challenging for people, and it was certainly challenging for me when I started my business because I wanted to please everyone and I wanted them to know I was there for them and that I was a good communicator and that I was ready to serve when they needed me. This does you no favors. Trust me on this. If you can set these parameters around when clients can expect a response from you, they can learn to respect your time outside of those parameters. They'll form a fuller, more whole idea of you as a person with a life outside of your service to them. For me, communication and access boundaries means setting and sticking to business hours when you're communicating with your clients. However, there are exceptions. In my line of work, websites can go down or crash or become unavailable. And to the client, that's a very real emergency. And you may have emergency protocols of your own in your business, depending on who you serve. When that happens, there is a support email that they can reach out to instead of me, because I'm not looking at my emails after hours or on the weekends, and especially not on holidays when I'm with my family. But there is somebody that I employ that has signed up to perform that task, and they make themselves available. And that way the client is being served, they're being heard, and when they are panicking, someone is talking them through it, and it maintains a good client-business relationship, and it doesn't step on my personal time or cause me to break down those boundaries. The second business boundary that I've set up is around scope and parameters of work or your agreement of service. This is especially important when you're a service provider because scope can get stretched quite easily. So I won't get into the specifics of how to set up scope going into a project, but I will say that once those expectations of your service are set, please stick to those. And if the client asks for more, well, they have to pay more or they have to wait because that wasn't what you agreed to. It's extremely hard to say no to clients when you're starting in business. However, it gets easier because they will learn, and they also learn how to handle being told no. The alternative is you're a service provider that says yes to everything. It's always yes to this, yes to that, no problem. And all of a sudden, when you cannot and you must say no, the client does not know how to react. You are training your clients essentially on how to treat you every day with every piece of correspondence. If you ask them to give you more lead time before making a new request, then please don't budge on that and fulfill it before that time frame that you asked them for. You're teaching them what your boundaries are. And by saying no, and by saying, I'm sorry, my calendar is booked up, or I don't have any more order time this month, then you're teaching them also that your time is valuable and that you're in high demand. And it does not mean they're going to go shopping elsewhere. It means they're likely going to take a number and wait their turn and then pay a fair rate and get exactly what they wanted from you with the best service possible because you made the time for them when the time was right. There is room to compromise here. For me, I'm not saying that you must do this, but for me and my experience with the types of clients that I serve, they can often have last minute or urgent requests, and for that we compromise. I don't squeeze them in and butt clients out of the way. If I have paying clients that are scheduled, they stay in place, they get my priority. But if it means that I have to put in an hour or two after hours or on my weekend, then they get charged a rush rate. And that's fair. That's a compromise. This segues into a really good rule of business that's ages old, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's the rule of 2 out of 3. You can choose 2 out of 3, but you can't have it all. Quality, speed, or cost. So scenario A, I can do it well and I can do it fast, but it'll cost you. Scenario B, I can do it fast and cheap, but it won't get my full attention. And side note, I don't offer this option ever because it impacts my reputation. And scenario C, I can do it well and cheap, but you won't be my first, second, or third priority. You're going way down to the bottom of the list, and you'll probably have to wait longer than you want to for me to get the work done. And my third boundary is around doing pro bono work or favors for friends and family. So I don't know a single business owner, no matter what line of work you are in, that hasn't been approached by a friend, a family member, even a distant acquaintance about doing discounted or free or favored work. And there's nothing wrong with doing pro bono work. I, in fact, have a whole time budget set aside every year that I fulfill towards pro bono work because I like to give back and I like to do charity services. And I also entertain quite a few requests from family and friends, as you can imagine from a designer in the course of a year. And so my boundaries are more so reminders. Number 1, just because you have available time doesn't mean you have to fill it, and it doesn't mean you have to give it away. Reminder number 2, check in with your needs first. Will any resentment come from fulfilling this request? So you may, like me, want to jump to please, especially if it's someone that you deeply care about, like a family or a friend. And what happens often is afterwards, if you hadn't checked in with yourself to find out first, do I have the energy for this? Do I actually have the time for this? Or will it cause complications in other areas of my life? That could very easily lead to a feeling of resentment or remorse for taking on the task because you're simply overwhelmed, and it could burden your relationship with that person. And the third reminder that I like to check in with myself on is there a potential here for an exchange of goods or services? And I'll be fully honest with you, in the opportunities that have arisen where someone has come to me with a favor and I counter with, I have a great idea. I really admire how you do this. And it's very useful to me right now. How do you feel about an exchange of equivalent services for value? I'll actually use a real example. My stepsister, who's a wonderful baker, shout out to Piece of Cake Amy Fisher, we struck a bit of an exchange of services, and I helped her with her branding. I set her up in my branding package like I would with every other client, treated her no differently. We went through all the motions. It took us a few weeks. She ended up in a beautiful brand design, walked away, started using it in her business. And a week, 2 weeks, a month later, I was calling on her for her help doing baked goods for various events and birthdays until we called it even. I advise you to, going into these agreements, settle with the amount of service and value that you will provide to each other so that it feels like a fair and even trade. And that not only benefits you, it benefits the person who originally came to you with the request because they will also feel valued and they will feel like they're not indebted to you for giving them the pro bono service. So those are my 3 business boundaries. I hope you find them helpful, and I hope that you feel you can begin applying them in your business. And I would love to hear about your additional business boundaries. If there's anything that you feel has helped you get to that next level in business with respect to your clients and customers and that relationship, or how it's helped you mentally in your everyday life, going about your world, mental health, physical health, and relationship health. I'd love to hear all about your boundaries. Thanks for listening.